So tell us a little bit about Chris. Like what you got going on. Like clearly you live in New Orleans. There's kids that we need to be cognizant of. What else have you got going on, man?
Let's see. I'm 45 years old. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm not bragging. I always wanted to live in New Orleans. I went to college, never finished at Belmont University in Nashville. That got me halfway to New Orleans. I don't know why I've always wanted to live here. Had a little bit to do with Pantera, I think.
Okay.
My
Makes sense.
my best friend growing up, we were all Pantera all the time, and then Down came out, and we always said we would
Mhm.
live here. And he wound up passing away from he had real his whole family had big kidney problems. So it was kind of an homage to him to move down here. When I first got to college before he passed away, I stayed 4 nights in one day here because that's how it normally goes. And I never wanted to leave. I finally got an opportunity to move here. Um, I was a tattoo artist at the time, and I moved here, and I never wanted to leave. My stomach wouldn't allow it. Being Italian, we kind of get led around by our guts. So once I saw the food in action here, yeah. So I met a Cajun girl who's 9.5 years younger than me, but 20 years more mature. And I've been with her since '06. We got married in 12. We have 2 kids. I've got a 8-year old and a one that turned 4 just recently. And my 8-year old is the musician. He's about 95% blind. He has a genetic eye thing where he can only see. I guess, he can't see outside. When he's inside, he has nystagmus, so his eyes bounce, but he has all this thing called Leber's amaurosis or LCA. And so it's kind of like looking through a toilet paper tube. He can only see like 6 feet in front of him if you were blinking a whole lot, and mostly colorblind. So he sees very little, but he is a monster on different instruments. I was a musician. I was a touring musician for a while. I'm a bass player, and my dad was a bass player. Like Grand Funk Railroad played in my dad's very popular cover band's breaks. So, um, so Victor is better than both of us combined, and he's 8. It's stupid. It's just, it's,
It's got to
I'm
make you
like,
proud, right? I mean,
yeah,
come on.
it's a combination of because he could do things that we like. He's got perfect pitch, and he could teach himself instruments, and like he'll be playing drums. He's totally self-taught, and he'll just be right in the middle of like, Dad, that's a D minor. Hey, G, and I'm like, shit, you know. So it's nice because I know that he'll have some sort of future in it, and the thing that I think you guys will find interesting is how he learns is bananas. The teacher that he has teaches music in a very different way than we were taught music. Not because he's blind, but because he teaches. Oh, hold on, I'm doing an interview. So he teaches this method called partimento, and it's
I've
how
heard this.
Bach and Mozart and you know Beethoven, how they learned back then. And the way they learned music back then was so wildly different than we teach music. It's simplified, and it's just when I see him at lessons, he's got an awesome teacher. I met him through the Lighthouse for the Blind. He didn't want to take any kids under teenager, and I sent him 2 videos of Victor. I played what is it, Beethoven's Fifth, da 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 da. And I played like 10 seconds of it. And I said, this is before Victor's had any piano lessons, anything. And I said, play it. He said, dun, 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 dun. So I sent that to Paul, and then I sent him a video of him playing Bulls on Parade. Oh, and a little clip of Ode to Joy. And because I hate being the bragging parent.
Right.
So I was like, let me just send you a video. I think he's got something, you know?
Right.
And I was like, he's got perfect pitch. And so he called back. He's like, oh, okay. And I thought he was going to talk about the learning. Oh no, it's Furelise, the dee doo dee doo dee doo dee dee doo. It was that and Beethoven sixth and fifth, and I thought he was going to be impressed by that. He goes, no, it's the drumming. He goes, he has perfect pitch. Generally, people with perfect pitch have terrible rhythm, and he plays the drums. So he's like, I'll teach him. So
That's amazing.
yeah. So
Well,
so I started him on piano.
okay.
I think piano is like learning Latin before everything else. Like if you can understand the keys, like if you play piano for 5 years and then pick up guitar, you're going to catch up so fast because you know how to play piano. And so you'll be a good guitar player and you know how to play piano. It's like, I think it's more of a universal situation. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. Before we go any further with this, can you just list off the instruments that he can play? Because at first we were talking about drums, and then it switched over just to piano. It's like, well, wait a minute, what is in
Yeah.
his repertoire right now? What is
He
he able to
he's
play?
he started on drums. My brother-in-law had an old electronic set, and literally the next morning, well, when he was a little kid, I would put in my bass. This is how I knew that something was little. Like even when he was in his jumper, he loved the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. And you could like if this kid broke his arm and you played Hooked on a Feeling, he would immediately stop. Like it was almost like a parlor trick. He would just start bouncing to the beat. And I'm like, so I'm like, okay, okay. And then we would put the bass on the floor. And one day I walked in and he was playing How the Gods Kill by Danzig. He was just going and he was like holding, and I'm like, all right, something's going on. And my best friend is a record producer. And he was like, see if he has perfect pitch. So I taught him all the notes on the piano. And he said, all right, play a note. And he was just immediately like D sharp. And then Rick, my buddy, was like, get on your bass, play something really low, and get on the piano and play the really high keys. Because he's like, it's one thing in the middle. If you can get it on the ends, that's when you know. And I was even playing two notes at once, like on a bass, just and he'd be like, that's a G, that's a D sharp, and an F. And I'm like, yeah, so that was cool. But so we got him this drum set. And the next morning, he only been playing for 45 minutes. He played through Highway to Hell.
Okay.
And he can't do jumping jacks. He's so uncoordinated. But like, I don't know how he plays drums like that. It's really weird. So he played drums, and then I got him on piano, and then he always played around with my bass, and then I got him a Schecter. He's a metal. He listens to everything. Like when he goes to bed, he listens to anything from Sleep Token to Russian deathcore to Louis Armstrong to the Beatles. Loves Elvis.
Really?
And but yeah. So then I got him the Schecter and got him some distortion, which was a problem because he didn't want to play piano for a while. You know, He-
Just wants to make noise, man. Just want to make
that
noise.
guitar tone, it gets in your soul a little bit. And I'll walk in and be like, "Is that Machine Head Davidian? It's pretty good." And he can't use a pick. He plays it like a bass. He's just like, so like he'll be like, and then he'll even hit like harmonics. Like,
Oh my God.
It's really weird. I have like he has a YouTube channel. There's some funny stuff on there with him playing shit. But
Or we post this, we need to get that link to that
yeah,
YouTube channel with
I'll,
him because I mean I am
yeah,
curious and I'm sure other people are going to be too.
yeah. And here's the thing, he the way he's taught. The most interesting thing about this Partamento stuff that I notice is you see a lot of kids that can play crazy stuff. All right. And like they don't know why they're playing the notes, but they can play Tom Sawyer on bass and they're 11. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that. But the Partamento stuff, the interesting thing about it is it teaches music on a whole different level where it's about composition. Because that's what I think we lack now with they can't write songs. Like when you listen to like yacht rock, the mastery of the chords that they use is not like Green Day.
right.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like just to be able to arrange like that, that's kind of a lost art. It's not as common now. And so the Partamento, it teaches him how to, he knows movements. And what it teaches is it teaches to look at the bass line, and that's it. Or it's called figured bass, where it'll have a bass line and it'll have like two little numbers underneath. And what he does is he looks at the it's like when you read, you don't read one word or one letter at a time, you read groups, you know. And
Right.
so he can look at the movement and go, okay, that's Stand By Me, that's 74 love songs, that's Vivaldi, that because it's all the same. So he's like, I've seen this movement 100 times. So he can immediately go, okay, what are we in C sharp? Boom, let's do it. And it's really weird how they teach that. And so he can write. And but he doesn't have the attention span to really master many songs. Like
He's
he'll
still
get it
8.
like 80, yeah, he'll get like
I mean,
80%.
yeah,
And then he wants to go to the next thing.
right.
But
That's I
yeah.
mean completely understandable. I mean I've got a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old, so I mean they're right there in that same age area, and it's yeah their attention span is this
Mhm.
all the time. Um,
Yeah.
so let me ask this question: Is mom a musician? Like where did so this is all you?
Yeah.
This is
I guess.
that's awesome.
My wife was a nurse, and about 10 years ago I taught her how to tattoo because she can paint things that look like photographs. And it's been like this is a long time ago. Oh, you can't really see it, but it's me playing bass and her painting me. But yeah, I can't see it too well. But no, she works out of the house as a tattoo artist. So she's booked up to like next March. And and then I run my business from the house. So yeah, so I guess to answer your question, I guess it's coming from me.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of artists in the family, so it's probably a
Yeah.
combination
But
of the
I'm a
two.
bass, dude. I'm a rock bass player. I'm
Okay, it's
not.
from you. Okay, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm up there. I'm half in the audience, like bass players in rock. Outside of like Les Claypool and Flea, I'm just having fun. I don't try to. I'll play the simple bass line more than the one where I'm like, like the really hard. Like if I have a choice, I'm not a bass aficionado. So I think a lot of it has to do with his lack of sight, which he was gifted with those ears.
Right.
And but yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your business. So the wife's a tattoo artist out of the house. What is it that you do?
I um I I'm an insurance broker. So what I
Okay.
do is I like reason why we relate to this. I had somebody call me up. They were spending $500 for insurance. I got them 3 times more insurance with the same company for $260. They're pumped. I make money. I love my job because I save people ungodly amounts of money on insurance. It's like in this country, you can get what you want. You just need it's like running your own business without an account. You need somebody who knows how to get around all the stuff and get everything real cheap. So I'm licensed in 22 different states. My so I'm like have an accountant or a lawyer on retainer that they never have to pay, and I just help them get way better stuff for a lot less money than what they got because I have all the plans and all the stuff. So I'm a manager. I have a bunch of agents that work underneath me. We all do it
Okay.
on Zoom,
Okay.
and it's fun.
So when did you get started with that?
November 19th.
November of 19. And what kind of got you in that direction? What were you doing before? And it sounds like you switched careers or
Yeah.
switched jobs to get to it. What was that
I've
journey like?
always I've always been in some type of sales. I'm like, I know what I'm good at. I'm good at running my mouth. I'm not a good carpenter. I can't fix a car with a shit, but I'm good at entertaining people and talking. And so I always been in some sort of sales job. I ran call centers. And so I've had some really hard, difficult jobs. And I got into this because I was working at a company and I'm like, $1,300 for me, my, 2-year old and my wife, get out. And then I started to like, I never wanted to be an insurance agent. I'm like, I don't want to be that guy that hands out cards at the grocery store. But I don't do that. I just wake up whenever I want. I turn on leads, the calls come in and I sell them insurance. It's not even really selling. It's because you're coming in so much lower than everybody else because you know all the little tricks on how to do it that it's cool. I can take off a month of now. It's hard now because I'm a manager, but when I was just an agent, I could take off a month. No one's going to say nothing. It's you have complete freedom, and
Well, when you've
it's
got the
quite
leads
fun.
coming in like that, I would assume that, I mean, they're all warm leads. They're all looking for,
Yeah.
a change or a break from what they had. And, they land with you guys. And then it's just a matter of finding the
Yeah.
right plan, right?
And the whole thing is you just act like a crazy person. Like you just don't act dry and you say funny things and you talk about an accident policy. It's like, all right, you go out drinking with the boys and Bob slams your hand in the car door. You go to the emergency room. This is what's going to happen,
Right.
you know? And as long as you can entertain them and they love, like, there's people I saved like $1,000 a month. I mean, like four, five, $600 just because they don't know how to buy this stuff and they're doing it wrong. And, um, and so, yeah, the calls come in and I train all my people to think like me. And most of the time, the good calls come in are at night. So I kind of take it easy in the day. I watch a lot of Netflix. I try not to like burn myself out in the day. And then after dinner, I turn my leads on and I make some money and go to bed.
So well, I have the transition. Have you always worked for yourself?
No.
Okay, so is this the first time that you decided to go out on your own and start out as an agent on your own and then just kind of expanded into an agency?
Well, I work for a company called Health Markets, but we're 1099. So it's
Okay,
my own, you're running your own business.
right.
Health Markets is owned by United Healthcare. But before this, I tried to open up a couple different well, actually, matter of fact, my friend Rick, he had a recording studio. We went in partners on that. Um, we recorded some, I don't know if you ever heard of Flaw.
Yeah,
So we
I was
so we
actually
record
listening to the first album like 3 days
I
ago.
love that album. Oh yeah, I could
It's
tell you some
really good.
that first so that was a cool experience that my friend Rick went to Berkeley School of Music in Boston.
Okay.
he's he's worked on Jay-Z albums. He got handpicked by Quincy Jones to engineer an album. Like he's worked with Rammstein,
Okay.
Rammstein,
Yeah.
Rammstein. Why do I always mess that up?
Look, I'm not German, so I can't say.
But he had a studio here in Picayune, Mississippi, and we were Flaw fans. And they wanted to do now they had done nothing for 10 years and we were trying to get a word out that we were good. And we did that pretty much for free. It was like, oh, it was drama. Chris Voles
Really?
was not in a good headspace. Oh,
That sucks.
yeah, it was like Guns N' Roses pissed off. Like it was our intern quit twice. Like it was brutal. But the album we did was the hell is it called? Oh my God. We did hang
I
on,
can
I'll
feel
think
that
of
intern's pain, while you're looking that up because I was an intern at a couple of different places in Nashville back in the early 2000s and or yeah, about early well, right to getting into the
Nashville.
20 teens. And what's that?
In Nashville.
Yeah. And
I went to school at Belmont. That's where I went to
I
school.
was not able to go to Belmont or to Berkeley or anything else. I actually ended up at the SAE Institute there in Nashville. And
Uh-huh.
that was by way of a psychology degree at the University of Georgia. So it's so hilarious, the overlap with some of our stories because when I graduated in 2001 from UGA with my psychology degree, my first job was as an insurance agent for Farm Bureau Insurance
Yes, yes,
out of
yes.
I think it was Newton County, and I did that for a little while, and it was like, man, this just isn't for me. Like, I'm not. This is
Right.
not who I am, and
Yeah.
ended up packing my bags and went up to Nashville and went to the SAE Institute for a couple of years and finished that program and did some studio work, did some live sound work in and around the area. I
Mhm.
love Nashville to death. I was up there recently. It's not the same town that I experienced, but times
I
change. They
went
are
there a few months ago. I was thinking the same thing.
so it's
Yeah.
I would love to go back to that time. That was probably the best 7 years in any town I've ever been in. But um, no, I
Yeah, the
completely
the
understand
album,
where that intern's coming from. Just going, you know what? Screw these guys. I'm out.
yeah, the album we did is called Divided We Fall.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, at the very end, the coolest thing that happened when we recorded that album, you know that song My Letter?
Yeah. Yeah.
That slower,
Yeah.
that song lyrically especially will catch any man in the feelers. Like, and he lost the rights to all of his music and he had just gotten back. And the last song on that album, he did a piano version of it. And we did the Rick's other friend Chris did put the piano down and he had this thing. And now that guy, he was having a big drinking problem at the time. He was hard to handle. I mean, him and the bass player got in fist fights in the studio. I mean, like it was a mess. But no matter how inebriated he was, he sang like an angel. We did like two pitch corrects the whole album, like
Yeah.
which is unheard of. Like, just I told him one time, it's like if you didn't have the voice of an angel, you would have nobody in your life, because he was so hard. He's better now, but my
Good.
God. But he did a piano rendition of that song. It the first take he started choking up, and then the second take he just nailed it. And me and my friend, we grew up on that song. He's like, "Was that okay?" We're like, "Yeah, that was good. That's good enough. Yeah, you should listen to it." Like it's, I mean, it was like in the first take he stopped like in the like fourth word. That was a one take song, and I was like, "This motherfucker!" Like, jeez. Yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, so I had that business. We opened up a music school. That was
Okay.
my dream. And I had all these awesome ideas. And we got it open. And because we had some rock stars in Picayune,
Clearly.
Mississippi, they didn't even know it. And so we opened up this um, music school called Echo. And
Okay.
I had and the studio was right next door. So I was like, this is going to be awesome. We're going to have the kids could meet the musicians. We'll have them go talk to them. We had this idea because it was big enough. We had a stage and they could wear like backstage laminates that had their name, what they played, and their skill level. So they can form bands and on the weekends, because there's nothing else to do in Picayune, Mississippi, like that, which
Yeah.
is like 15 minutes away from where I live in Louisiana. And it was awesome. Like it would have been awesome. And my buddy, oh, we almost lost our friendship over this. I said, don't start this in the summer. Please start it when school starts. Please. But when he gets an idea, he's got to do it now. So he struggled all summer. He was getting buried by like financially. And then he just moved to Orlando. And I'm like, and then as soon as school started, well, he told me like a month later, he goes, "This is my best friend." He goes, "I've been waiting. I didn't, I like, I've been meaning to tell you this for a month. I haven't had the guts." He goes, "But as soon as school started, I got 40 emails from parents that want to start their kid." And I went, "You dick."
Have
I
you ever thought
told
about going back to that?
I was more of the business end of it, and he was
Right.
the talent. I mean, he plays like 20 instruments. We had awesome teachers lined up, but we didn't start fast enough. And I kept warning him, just wait. And that would have been enough kids to stabilize the studio
Right.
and the actual you know, school.
Right.
And I told him, I said, the next thing we get into, I get a wild card. No matter what I say, you got to follow it because of that mess up. That was epic.
How long ago was that?
Oh, probably about 6 years ago.
Oh, it's time to revisit,
Yeah, I know. I
dude.
know.
Like
Yeah.
in that
Well,
time frame, you know how many School of Rocks have popped up all over the country? Like,
as a
come
matter
on.
of fact, I got close to doing it again. Victor's teacher, my son's teacher, he had a whole he got a nonprofit status. And out in Kenner, Louisiana, which is another suburb of New Orleans, we started this huge school, and it was kicking. We had famous musicians coming in from Preservation Hall, like jazz musicians
Yeah.
and stuff. He was teaching Partamento. It was blowing up. And Hurricane gone. And oh I was sick to my stomach. And so was obviously Paul was like it was really cool. And he had a way of teaching that was so different and cool. So yeah, I kind of revisited and that got screwed up. I'm like a curse. So there's
I
that.
don't know you well enough to say that, but I would say this. The only way that it never happens is if you never try again and again and again until it happens. So, I wouldn't give up on that because when you lit up, when you said that that was the dream, like
Yeah.
obviously it's still there.
Yeah.
So
I'm
one of
not,
these
but
days,
like I
one
said,
of these days.
I'm not the music teacher. I can organize, I can promote, and
That's why you
and
get
I had the
partners.
talent. I mean, my friends had the talent to take care of all the rest of the stuff, and but that first one though really broke my heart because that would have been so cool. Because Rick's friends with like the guys from Seven Dust, like so they would come in, and it's just like how cool would that be to be taking music lessons and like flaws hanging out,
Right?
and that would have
Now
been so cool.
is Rick out of New Orleans?
So no, he lives in Orlando now, but he grew up in Europe. That's
Okay.
how he got to work on Rammstein, and but he was in the military, got hurt. They sent him to Berkeley School of Music. Then he was George W. Bush's sound guy for 2 years. So anytime George W. Bush did like a speech, he was the one miking the marching band and making sure everything worked. And then he started working with all these different acts, stuff like that. But yeah, he's really good. And I met him on a whim on an ad to start a cover band. It was a really weird way we met, and then we just quickly became close friends.
It's awesome.
But
I don't know why
yeah,
he mentioned the name Rick, and we've got Rick Beato here in Atlanta, and that guy
yeah,
is just
yeah,
so I didn't know if it was possible that it could have been the same guy, but clearly it's not.
yeah.
Um,
He's a little younger than me. He was more, I guess. I just like to say I'm so sick of new metal getting a bad rap.
you,
That
you know what?
bothers me.
It bothers me too to a certain extent, but the thing that I haven't been able to wrap my head around is the resurgence that we're seeing of new metal. Like there are more and more bands coming out right now, and you only see them kind of in the periphery right now, but they're coming out, and you're seeing more and more articles about up and coming new metal bands.
Yeah,
I'm
Like, how do you
hoping
do?
that
How do you
maybe.
define new metal? Give me some examples. What is the parameter, like the bookends of new metal? Because you can look
So,
at it and be like, go ahead.
well, for me, and then again, I grew up during that time frame. Like, I had the cassette of Slipknot's first album. Like I was just
Yeah.
that's that was the time that I grew up.
How old are
So
you?
I'm sorry, I'm 45.
Okay. Okay. All right. Cool.
Um, I'll be 46 in November. So for me, when I think new metal, and I think a lot of bands that are not new metal get lumped into it. Maybe some of their early work was, but they're not anymore because they just had to change with the times. But I looked at new metal as you had to have anywhere from 3 to 4 different elements in the not each song, but in the entirety of your album. You had to incorporate different elements from different areas. The core tenet of anything that you did was hard rock metal. So the foundation was there. So we're
Right.
talking double bass, we're talking drop D, 7 string guitars, all that kind of stuff. But you also had to have an element of, I'll call it hip hop, but it's not really.
That's what I
Like
was
it's
about to
there's
say.
just a
The drumming beats. The drumming
yes.
beats. And it gave bounce, you know. But here's the thing, like it was funny because Rick, he was a touring rapper, but he was also in a rap rock band. And I used to make fun of rap rock, and he'd be like, no rap rock bands are the same. He's like, they're not. There's a big difference between Linkin Park,
Yes.
Hacktivist, I mean, any of them, whether it's Rage Against the Machine, you name any rap rock band, they're very different. I'm like, I never really realized that. Um, but uh,
I always
but
look
yeah, they
at
all have that bounce element to it. And I remember when it got out of that, and that's when, to be honest, I have a hard time. I grew up on Pantera, White Zombie, Ministry, Machine Head, Crowbar. That was my stuff. And in Cleveland, I saw Marilyn Manson 7 times in a year. I saw them play a place called the Fantasy that was a seafood restaurant, just transitioned into a concert club. It had a big sailboat in the middle of the pit. You just mosh around the bow of the pit, of the boat. Like, it was awesome. That shit back then was awesome. And we saw all these bands in little venues. Okay, so here's my question. Would you consider Marilyn Manson new metal?
that's
No?
like somebody asking me if I would consider, again, taking the elements that I just described, where it's hard rock metal foundations with hip hop and different elements of that genre, and asking me if Kid Rock is new metal. Like there's no, I would not consider Marilyn
So you're
Manson.
you're more of the it's the Deftones, it's Slipknot,
Yes. And even
it's
Slipknot, like after really once you get into volume 3, I think you lose a tremendous amount of that new metal feel. Maybe definitely off the
yeah,
self-titled,
yeah, I get it.
definitely on Iowa, but from volume 3 on, it veered way more metal. And I think a lot of it had to do with Corey changing his vocal styles, and
Mhm.
and his presentation changing is kind of why I feel that it took that turn. But I don't look at I put Marilyn Manson not this isn't I wouldn't necessarily call this its own rock genre, but shock rock. Like the first place that I think when I think Marilyn Manson is the Rob Zombies, is the Alice Coopers, is the Kisses. So it's not because of the music, it's because of the image. Because I would
Yeah,
never say that Marilyn Manson and Kiss are actually in the same musical
right.
musical categories at all. But when I think Marilyn Manson, that's where my mind goes, just for the theatrics. That's to say, though, I don't think that when I think about Slipknot. So it's very to me, it's very nuanced. I wouldn't put Slipknot in a shock rock first. I would put them in new metal first, and then if they had to have a subcategory for them or a second one, it would end up being in the shock rock area.
When
So
I when I when
again,
I was growing up in Cleveland, we had the same local band open up for almost everything. Whether it's Marilyn Manson, Down, it didn't matter. Same band, and it was freaking Mushroom Head. And back then, Mushroom Head was so awful that
Yeah.
we're high school kids. We're like, who's a Mushroom Head? I must
I
have
mean,
seen Mushroom Head 40 times. It was it was torturous. And after every show, they would try to grab the little kids and get us to try and get shirts and like try to like we were gonna look. I'm like, get out of here, Mushroom Head.
but is it because they were musically bad, or because at the same time that they're trying to do their thing, you had other
Well, this
bands
was like
doing it better?
95, so it was before Slipknot. But they didn't
This
have
is just
those
coming
like
up.
yeah, they didn't have those like cool masks yet. They were like one
Okay.
guy was
All
wearing
right.
like a devil mask and a wedding dress, and the music was just completely unhinged. And that one singer who kind of sounds like Geddy Lee would just annoy me. He was really tall. He was dressed like one of the guys from the Blues Brothers, and then the other singer who screamed, and they were just pitiful.
So
Like
there was, I remember, like, I know I've got the first album around here somewhere. Um, but I remember Jeffrey Nothing was the singer, and then it was the guy that wouldn't wear a mask. He would just paint his face white.
yeah,
Was kind
yeah,
of
that
like
was the
the
other
the
one.
growl
Right.
singer. And
Yeah.
I remember listening to that first album, kind of thinking, like, I don't know how to feel about this. Like, I'm trying to find the through line, and I'm trying because it not maybe the exact same time. It probably wasn't 96, 97. I think it was a little bit later. I have to go back. But there was a band that came out that, if you didn't if you only had a couple of seconds to look at it, you might think that it was also Mushroom Head, but that was Moto Grader.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I loved Moto Grader. And it was
Mhm,
like, okay, so this is along the same lines in terms of the theatrical look and feel,
mhm.
but musically, 1,000 times better than the stuff that I was hearing off of that Mushroom Head album.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of that scene from Coming to America when Sexual Chocolate's playing, and when the guy goes, "That boy's good." Yeah, good and terrible. Like that's what it was. You know, my
Well,
favorite concerts in the '90s. I mean, beyond Pantera, Pantera is just special.
yeah.
When you go to a Pantera show, it's 10,000 of your friends that you haven't met yet. That's what makes them special. They have a philosophy. Other bands don't have a philosophy. Like if you get 10,000 diehard Pantera fans back then, we all have the same worldview. You see what I'm saying? Like that
Sure.
whole the male condition transitioning anger to something positive like that's their whole deal. Let it all out. Like just it's guy shit, you know?
Watching their well, back in the day we used to have home videos
Oh, I
where you
know
could
'em by
get,
heart. Know 'em
dude,
by
I
heart.
remember, oh, just watching all the behind the scenes antics of those guys,
Oh yeah.
all the
Just
pimple popping and all the shot after shot after shot after beer after shot. Like it,
you remember in the home videos where that big stack of speakers falls into the crowd and feels like, oh no.
yes,
That was our
yes.
that was our show in Cleveland.
What?
So I was at that one, yeah. My uncle was part owner of that venue, as a matter of fact.
Oh
That
my
venue was
God.
awesome. But oh
So,
yeah,
all
he
right,
did a
we got to
bunch
ask
of
this
cool stuff.
question then. Like, we've got the reunion tour that's not a reunion, but what do you think about Zach and Charlie helping
Okay.
Rex and Phil out?
All right. I'm just gonna say it like this because I have fought this. I made this argument. I'm sick of arguing it, but like online, I like arguing it vocally. I love Dimebag Daryl. Don't get me wrong. I love Dimebag Daryl, but I'm going to be perfectly honest. Pantera is Phil. Pantera is, I know
Okay.
Dimebag started it. Pantera is Phil. That philosophy is Phil, and that's what makes them special more than the guitar playing. I'm sorry. Damage Plan, blah. It was
Right.
mediocre at best. The lightning in a bottle was that unapologetic testosterone. And Phil Anselmo, he does something different. Other singers, they take a concept and they stretch out simple concepts into 52 words to fill space. Phil Anselmo has the ability to take a concept that you could write a whole book on and sum it up in 7 words. You know what I'm saying? Like, I kill myself for you. I kill you for myself. I'm
Right.
bone, brain, and top. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's just something about like that. And so with the reunion, I'm all for it.
Okay.
Now, I will tell you this, I'm afraid to go and see him
Ooh.
because I have so many amazing experiences seeing Pantera. I don't want to ruin it if it's not good. Like it'll just like I don't think I'm gonna go and see it, even though I love that it's happening. I'm afraid to see it because if it's not awesome, I don't want it to mess with those perfect memories.
Right. Well, you know,
You
there's full concerts online right now, right?
I know,
All
but
you need to
a
do
buddy,
is just,
they just played. I think it was Houston,
yep. Because
and
it was,
people
wasn't it like Dime's birthday or something, like 56th birthday or something like that?
maybe, but
And it was the first time they'd been back there.
I
And
knew. I have a friend online that went. It was like the sound was horrible. Not the band was horrible. The sound was horrible, and I'm like, see, I'm used to Pantera is a band that you should be looking up at,
right,
like from a pit, not looking down from upper mezzanine. It's
right.
not the same. When you're like in front of them and they're playing strength beyond strength or something like that, it's like being in a like on a hell of a roller coaster for like an hour and a half. It's awesome. And I don't want to have be way up in the upper deck watching Pant. That just that's that ugh.
So
Yeah, I
club or
don't know.
stadium?
Yeah, I would pay a fortune to see them in like a like the venue where that stack fell, you know, like where you
Yeah.
got that general admission. That would be I'd pay 3 grand for that ticket. I swear to God. Like, but I am not going to pay 500 or 200 to
Right.
sit where it's echoey. Like I
Yeah.
saw Tool like that once, and I was like, this is no fun.
I saw them, I want to say in Knoxville a couple of years. Oh, a couple of years. It's probably about 5, 6 years ago. And it, it, I'd seen them previously and in a much smaller venue, and it just worked so much better than it did in an arena. Like you just, to
Mhm.
your point, like there's a there's a theatrical element in their particular style that really needs to be seen closer and not on, a 27-inch monitor that's right above you because your nosebleeds are so far away you can't
Mhm.
make anybody out on stage. Like,
Yeah. I mean, yes, and when we were an impressionable age back then, but something about him leaning over that monitor just it's like going to church. There's just something unmatched about that.
I mean, it definitely, and it did for me. I remember getting Far Beyond Driven. That was really my first entry into Pantera.
I
And
think that's the best heavy metal album of all time.
oh my God,
I could defend it too.
start to finish, dude. How do you, I mean,
Strength Beyond Strength is the most manly thing that has ever been recorded musically, um, lyrically. There is nothing that just embodies the male condition than that song. I don't care how heavy a shit you're listening to, death metal, talking about hell or whatever. There is nothing that is, it is just the musical representation of testosterone. I get in this argument a lot. This is real controversial. Let's just bring it. I don't there's a lot of women who like metal. I got no problem with it. It's awesome. Okay.
okay,
But I don't just like we can appreciate a good romance novel on the same level. I don't think a girl they can appreciate metal, but they can't appreciate bands like Pantera on the same level. Like for instance, I like In This Moment, but I'm not going to connect with her getting angry that society has labeled her a whore
right. I'm the
like a
same
girl.
way with OTEP. Like, I love OTEP, I really do. But to your point, like, there's I love the music. I love the people that she has brought in with each album to because they're just incredible musicians. But from a her lyrical delivery is really cool, but the lyrics themselves, there is that disconnect because she's bringing up those points that I, as a man,
Mhm.
am never going to experience.
But I have been just ganged up on online. If you like even say that, people just blow their women, and it's like things are marketed to to different groups of people. It's just the way it is, like it's why can't we just admit that? Like I don't know. I'm ranting,
Well, it's
but
one of those things that I'm sure that we're just not supposed to talk about, but
but
I don't
even if you
understand
like,
why. Like
yeah,
it's just it's a thing. It doesn't like it
yeah, you
only
can't say
has
it.
as much value as you give it. Like is it if it's that big of a deal to you, that's fine. It doesn't have to be that big of a deal to me. It's just a point of view. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not telling women not to listen to metal. I'm not
I mean,
telling
it's not controversial to say romance novels generally aren't for straight men. Why is that? You could say that all day, but you'd be like, Pantera is pretty much for dudes. Like I last time I got it, there was a girl who was challenging me, and I'm like, "What's your favorite Pantera album?" I knew what she was gonna say. Cowboys from Hell. I get it. Like I'm like, okay, awesome, all right. But when Mouth for War came out, he completely reinvented the template for a heavy metal lead singer, and it hadn't changed since. Think about it. Think about it. You don't have lead singers coming out trying to idolize Ozzy or Rob Halford or Bruce Dickinson. Look at Randy Blythe. Like that whole I'm a dude. I'm gonna get up there and I'm just gonna let all this stress out. That started with Phil screaming revenge on the Mouth for War video. I'm just saying, like metal changed at Vulgar, and I think it was perfected and Far Beyond Driven. But
because I hate to say it as a Pantera fan, but Great Southern Trendkill, Reinventing the Steel, like neither one of those albums resonated with me like any of the others. And again,
not on a
I say that
yeah,
with the utmost respect for that
right.
band because they will go down in history as one of the greatest heavy metal bands in my opinion. But
Yeah.
even the greats can have a dud or two.
Right. I like Great Southern Trendkill, not on a lyrical level as much, but I there's about 5 or 6 songs in that. I like the B-side songs. I love
Okay.
Use My Third Arm. Like I'm so sick of Walk. I'm so sick of 5 Minutes Alone. I'm sick of like any of that stuff. Oh wait. Let me ask you this question.
Okay.
Here's how you can
We're switching the
differentiate.
interview here, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, let me ask you this. And we're just talking about music now.
Yeah.
So, which Cemetery Gates version do you prefer? I think this says a lot about a person. The Cowboys from Hell or the 101 Proof?
Ooh, put me on the spot.
I give my answer if you want.
You know what? The only I'm gonna have to say I'm gonna have to say Cowboys.
Really? See, not me.
And here's why though. Here's why. Because on Proof, the problem here's my rationale for my answer. I have listened to Cowboys from Hell more than I have listened to Proof. Because at that point,
Right.
I don't want to say I'd written Pantera off, but I was like, guys, y'all keep burning me on these albums. Like I don't know that I can hold on when there's so much heavier, angrier shit coming out right now that is getting my
Right.
attention.
Right. I
So
mean,
it's just a
I
which
like
one have I
I like
heard more and which one have I exposed myself to more?
right. See, I like the 101 Proof one because he sounds like he grew up.
Okay.
And
I can
it's
appreciate that.
just and it's
I
less
need to
see
go back and listen to it.
I'm 40. Well, we're 45. I cannot get into Iron Maiden. Like that operatic stuff. with absolutely no bounds to it.
Right.
I can't, I don't know. And so,
I
so
don't
I
mind
mean,
it
he's
as
got a
long as there's it's got more gravitas to it. There's not a lot of kind of how to explain this. There's not a lot of bands out there right now, in my opinion, that are incorporating a lot of different genres to where there's the opportunity to be able to do something like operatic singing or clean singing or just powerful emotional singing along with everything else that you would need to go along to balance it out, at least that do it well. It's typically, well, I'll be honest, the band that I think of the most today that does the best job of what it seems like most bands are trying to do today, which is blend everything together. The one that does it the best with the most different genres is Sleep Token. I
I knew you
mean,
were gonna say that. I love them.
they
I
are
have,
fantastic,
yeah, aren't
both of
they?
them, because they're just two guys, you know? And the fact that it's just
Is it? It's
two,
just two guys?
okay, this is about to turn into a completely different conversation. So the lead singer Vessel does everything except the drums.
Really? That's awesome.
Piano, guitar, bass. On the recordings, he does everything except drums. The drummer, who is also the live drummer, he does the studio drums.
I got into it online with some like death metal guitar player that he said Sleep Token songs sound exactly the same. And I blew a gasket. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, first of all, death metal sounds the same. It hasn't done anything since 1992. All right, let's start there, right? I said, but Sleep Token, like that's the, okay. Let's take the summoning. How that thing is arranged, and then that contemporary shit at the end, but it's the same music.
By contemporary, we mean Barry White. Like, let's just put it out there because that's the what threw me off the first time that I heard that particular song was what seemed like the long outro, and then I felt like I was in some sort of funk world at the very
Yeah,
end. I mean, there's
yeah,
so many comments online like, you know what, this is baby making music. And that's exactly what it sounds like, you know. But to think that that same song has a double bass breakdown like
right.
a minute 30 seconds into the
Dude, that
song
shit
is
gets after
insane.
it. I know. I mean, like even the song Granite, that rap, that hip hop bass line when the guitars double that and the drums just slightly change. Because okay, it's easy to do something creative. What's really hard is to do something creative that's actually good. Like just to get off of Sleep Token for a second, like if you take the Tool albums, people say, what's the most um um ingenious Tool album? I love Anima, I love Lateralis, but the hardest one is Undertow. Because think about what they did. They wrote 4.5 minute songs that sound like nothing that's ever been done, lyrically,
Right.
nothing that's like ever been done, vocally, nothing like it's ever been done, and they're catchy. You know how hard that is to do? Like if this newest album would have sounded like Undertow, I don't think they could. Like that was lightning in a bottle.
I don't think that they could for a number of different reasons. Primarily, I mean, the way that the songs are constructed, they're constructed, not the sound, but the construction of them is very, very similar. They've kept that kind of we're gonna go long, we're gonna be proggy, it's gonna go all over the place, and you're gonna go for a ride musically. The visceral delivery that Maynard had on Undertow and on Opiate, like he's even said in interviews that he's like, I can't do that anymore. Like that's why we
Yeah.
don't do those songs live, is because I can't do them justice, in a live performance night after night after night.
I saw an
And
interview with him where he said that the newest album was good like 8 years ago. And they just kept tinkering and tinkering. And
well, he's very always been very vocal about how slow the rest of the band is at
Yeah.
getting him something that he can work with. Um,
But that's the thing. That's the thing. You can't just write millions of musicians could write hard shit. I
mhm.
am not impressed. It bothers me when like you get these metalheads and it's all about who's the best guitar player. I'm like, well, we should all be listening to Yngwie Malmsteen. If that's your logic, and it's always who's the best, that's who we should all be listening to. But millions of musicians can write like long 11-minute songs with 12 parts and but what the lightning in a bottle isn't that. It's the songwriting and the simplicity and the genius of that. Like
Right.
I'm way more into Elton John than I am Steve Vai,
Oh yeah.
or even Jimmy Page. Like to be able to put like I love yacht rock. Like just because I listen to it, like I'm like, this is such a well-written song. And like you take the song "Run Like Ride Like the Wind" by Christopher Cross. There's nothing more metal than that. If you ever listen to what that song is about, you know what I'm talking about.
Not that deeply, no.
It's about a kid who was raised up by a felon dad, learned how to be rough and a criminal, shoots 10 people dead when he's a young adult, goes to prison. He's set to hang. He breaks out of jail to head to Mexico the night before they're going to hang him. Like
It's the end of the song.
that's a metal song. Like
That is a mess.
would make most metal bands like watch, like that's a metal song. But anyway, um, but I don't know. Like the sleep token thing, I got so heated up because I'm like, they're doing things different. How
Doing
can you
things
say
different, and to your point, they're doing them well. That's the other
yeah,
thing. Like, and it's really easy to hate on them for for the delivery or whatever. You know, it number one, whoever says it sounds the same, you just haven't listened to it enough.
right.
And if you dive into the, I'll call it the mythos, but I mean, that is, those three albums are a story arc.
Yeah.
And to be able to tell the story that is told through those three albums, if you're, I don't want to say if you're paying attention, but if you listen closely enough and you follow along, like it is amazing what that band has done from a music standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint. And the thing that I feel like gets lost so much with that band is that they put out an album damn near every 2 years for that three album cycle.
Huh. I
There
didn't know
is
they were more.
not
I didn't know they were conceptual like that.
100%. And you don't hear that from bands a
Mm-mm.
lot these days. It's like album, tour, 2 years later, boom, album. 2 years
I
later,
mean,
boom, album.
here's the thing. I don't think they're doing anything. What's creative about them is how they're packaging it and putting different other things that they've taken because you could hear like he sounds like Peter Steele,
Man, yeah.
but he uses melodies like Robert Smith. There's like a Cure element to it or Depeche Mode. But then you get some of the hip hop stuff. It's bringing in so much stuff and it's like you would think it would sound like Mr. Bungle.
Right.
Like
Exactly. Yeah.
because of
It would sound like a hot mess, is what it would
yeah,
sound
right.
like.
Right. But it's not. And it's all done well. And you could tell they probably have a really good producer. Because that's the thing, that's what hurt metal. Right around 2001, 2002, like that first El Nino album, like they had these big producers taking songs that were yeah, and then making them awesome. And then the music industry didn't have any money, so there was no big producers on these albums. And you could tell band after band, it's like in the old days, it was designed that your biggest album was going to be your fourth, like in the classic rock days.
Right.
That's how that was the business model. And if you think about it, now it wasn't always the fourth. It might be the third, it might be the fifth, but most of the Led Zeppelin four, the Beatles finally got their swing. Metallica. I mean, just name a big band. Normally, they got better, 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 and then they started coming down. Def Leppard, even if you like High and Dry, you know their best album was the third or fourth. You know what I'm saying? Um, you could do that with any band. Now you don't have producers, or they're more cookie cutter, and you have these bands like Il Nino had that wonderful album, and then it was just couldn't write a good song for six
You know what?
albums.
That what you're describing there, at least that transition from the fourth album, and then how the business model changed for a long time. There was the sophomore slump. It
Yeah,
was you had a really good or halfway decent first album, but for whatever reason the second album just sucked complete ass. And it was like, well, can a band get in these times, can a band get over that and into their third album just to get back to where they started from the first album? And I remember distinctly when that was the that was the conversation going into the release of Iowa. Like
hmm,
everybody was like, "Oh God, please no. Let's just make it decent. Like let's just have a decent second Slipknot album." And then they
right.
came out with that masterpiece and just blew
That
the whole
album's heavy.
concept of
All right, I can tell you're a huge Slipknot fan. I got a Slipknot story. So when I was growing up, or when I was growing up, I was like 21. I had a friend named Azure, and she was close friends with Joey. So they played a show here in Gulfport, Mississippi, which is like 45 minutes away. Here was the lineup. This is weird. Mudvayne, then Lincoln Park, then Disturbed, then Papa Roach, and then Slipknot. Weird order of things.
okay, forget
And we
just the bands, like because I would not put like a Linkin Park on the same bill or even a Disturbed on the same bill as some of those guys. But to your point, the order makes no
no
sense to me
sense. Right, right.
whatsoever. Dude, I
So
went.
we
Sorry, I've got to slip. When you get done, I've got a
okay, okay.
Slipknot story for you.
So we went backstage and we were hanging out, and me and Corey just got along like peas and carrots. Me and him hung out probably for 5 hours after that show.
Wow.
Like he walked us to our car. Like we were actually friends after that. And he was really cool. And we were messing around. A couple funny things happened that night. And this is all backstage at a big arena, okay? First thing, I think when he really liked me was I was wearing a down shirt, and the lead
Okay.
singer of Papa Roach came up to me. We're standing in a circle with like 8 other people. Oh, before that, remember I said I'm a bass player? I talked to the bass player of Mudvayne for 45 minutes. I didn't know who he was. And the only reason I figured out who he was, you play an instrument? I said, I play bass. He goes, me too. I said, oh, who do you play for? He goes, Mudvayne. No, 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 no. I told him I played a Warwick, and he goes, "Oh, I'm sponsored by Warwick." And I'm like, "Oh, you're a bass player?" He's like, "Yeah." What band you play? Mudvayne. I wasn't a Mudvayne fan then. I was like a week later, and I kicked myself for not just picking his brain. But anyway, so I'm standing around this circle with Corey, and the lead singer Papa Roach started making fun of me because I was wearing a down shirt. And he said, "What is that? Charles Manson? You know the down logo. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about, right?"
Oh
And
yeah.
Corey goes, "That's down. That's Phil and Selma. What?" Like, and so like Jacoby was taken back by it, and he goes, started like trying to like make it up to me. He's like, "How'd you
Right.
like the show?" And I literally said, "Oh, it was really good. I would have liked it better if I was a 12-year-old girl." And Corey lost it. And I felt really bad. And I went to
Well,
Corey and I was like, "I'm so sorry you're torn." He's like, "We're just playing this show. That was great. That was great." So then we were talking about bands that we've always like he was talking about bands he always wanted to play with. Another thing about him, he was very subconscious. He goes, "Sometimes I feel like I look like an idiot up there." I'm like, "Dude, you just got 20,000 kids to lay on their face during the breakdown of Spit It Out. You're fine. All right."
right.
But we were talking about bands he always wanted to open for, and he loves the Misfits. I love the Misfits. Um, there's I can't remember the other ones he was saying, but I was telling him with this story about I went to a white zombie show and they were doing chicken fights in the pit, like a people like you doing a pool. And he goes, we should hang cages over the stage and we'll have cockfighting going on. And I'm like, oh yeah, the animal protection will love that. He was so into that idea, he took me onto the tour bus to try and pitch that to the tour manager. But yeah, it was a cool night. And but yeah, so that was my night. I got to hang out with Corey. Short motherfucker. I didn't realize how short he was.
I love seeing some of the press photos from the first album where they just have everybody in their jumpsuits and masks lined up, and it's like
Mhm.
from the tallest on the outside to the shortest in the middle.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
hilarious. I mean,
The
clearly
guitar
Joey was in the
player,
middle, but on his
yeah,
right or left was Corey.
Mick, what was his name? Mick, the
Big
guitar
Tom,
player.
yeah,
Yeah,
Big Tom.
he's big. He was telling me, I asked him, I said, what do you tune down to? And I think he said at the time it was C or B. He's like, I'm trying to figure out B, or he was trying to figure out A. He's like, I'm still working on it. Like they were really like, it's almost like you were talking to a local band, but they're still playing an
It's like
arena.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just out
Yeah,
here,
yeah, he's like, it's I asked him this too. I said, how the hell do you guys have practice with 9 members? Because
right.
it's so easy to want to choke out a drummer. You're trying to tune or talk, and there's and I'm almost sure that his answer was the percussionists are not invited until it's all we all have an idea of what we're doing because it's just going to
Is
get too
that
loud.
during rehearsal or is that like rehearsal for a show or rehearsal to go into the studio?
Um, I don't know. I didn't. I said practice. Like, how do you like? I may have said practice because I remember I was in a band once. I would just take the drummer sticks and just hurl them across just like no, stop it. We're talking. You know,
I've always felt like, the added percussion is a great element, but that's what it's an addition. It's never really looked at it as really a fundamental aspect. You could take, you take Sid out, you could take the new keyboard player out, you can take,
right?
Sean out, you could take, at the time Chris, and still have a pretty badass band.
Hmm.
I feel like it's to that point. The foundational elements of the song or the creators of those songs get together first and kind of hammer some shit out. And then they're like, all right, now you guys come in and fill in the gaps wherever we've left them. There was a great interview with Jay Weinberg when he was doing the, what is it? Chapter 5, the Gray album, and trying to find his place in the band creating the album. He asked Sean, he's like, so like, do you need me to like leave some stuff here? Like, do I need to play a little more open on this part? And apparently Sean's just like, just play. We'll figure it out. Okay. You just get in there and play, and then we'll work around you. Don't worry about it. So
That's
it
cool.
sounds like that's kind of the cadence of the way that they create songs. I'm sure it's, how a song starts is very different, each song. Somebody brings in a riff, somebody brings in a drum part, but it all starts with it starts with that core foundation before some of those other pieces are added into it.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, this
The
was
thing
fun.
that so really quick, my Slipknot story. It's one of the worst stories you'll ever hear about going to a concert. It was the it was the year of the first. It was the first tour, and Slipknot was opening for Machine Head, and Cold Chamber was on the bill as well. So me and a bunch of buddies decided, yeah, we're definitely going to this show. And because my idiot friends don't like to show up to things on time, we ended up getting there after the first band. So we're like, there's no way in hell that Slipknot's the first band on this bill. It's not going to go Slipknot, Cold Chamber, Machine Head. There's just
Right,
no
right.
possible way. We're walking up the stairs. I don't know if you've ever been to the Masquerade in Atlanta, but we're walking up. It's 3 levels, and the top level is called Heaven. So we're walking the 3 sets of stairs to get up to Heaven, and you just see this. drove of people coming down, pouring sweat, about to pass out, breathing heavy, just like, oh my God, that was the greatest show I've ever seen. I stopped one of them. I'm like, so Slipknot just got off stage, didn't they? He's like, you missed it? And I looked
No.
back at my buddies, and I don't know that I ever talked to them again, but I was like, you guys are the worst friends I've ever had in my life. And we
Yeah.
went and finished the show, but it was like, dude, the of all of the times to see that band, that was the time. And
I
I've
love
never
Mich
forgiven them and forgotten that story.
that's rough. I loved Machine Head. The first three albums of Machine Head, mainly the first two,
Yeah.
they brought it. Like, God, those first
Burn
two
My Eyes
albums.
was great. Like
The more
Davidian
things
and
change is good too.
yep,
Yeah, Davidian, dude, Davidian, that song should be standard issue on every tank in the United States military. Like
absolutely.
that shit. That was the only time I was in a pit where there was three levels of the pit. Like when they were
Okay.
doing what song were they doing? Down to None. Um and it just builds and builds and builds and builds.
Mhm.
There was people floating on top of the crowd, and there was people floating on top of them. They were opening up for Corrosion and Conformity. I just felt bad for Pepper Keen. I'm like, you got to follow that. That shit, that was high energy. Like that whole
100%.
concert. That's when they had the old guitar player with the dreads. That's when they were really, they're having a hard time writing songs. They haven't written that good song. I love them so much, and I listen to every song, and it like fouls it off into the stands. It's not, they cannot get it, like the hook isn't there or something. Like it's just filler. It's like B-sides, you know?
I had jumped off of the Machine Head bandwagon for a couple of albums, and had heard that the Blackening was great, and had heard all these
I
things about
didn't
a couple of when
wow.
they switched over back into their sort of thrash metal roots. So I decided I was going to take a chance and jump back on, and got in on Catharsis, and was like, what is this?
Just it's
This is
just
such
bad
garbage.
songwriting.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? It's like in a day and age where we need, our metal heroes to really come out in full force and plant the flag again. This is what you guys are coming out with. Just I don't know.
I mean, and
It is what it is.
I can see if they're getting old and the singer can't do it anymore. It is what it is. You know,
Rob
like
is
like
not there yet.
no, he's fine, and he just can't. It's like I listen to the songs. I'm like, I wouldn't have made that decision. I wouldn't have gone down that road.
Well, that's what happens when the lead guitar player, the lead singer, and the producer are all the same person.
Yeah. Say, yeah, like Fear Factory, perfect example. That Obsolete album was amazing, and then they're like the drummer's like, I can produce. I think the best example of a self-produced album in the metal genre is October Rust Typo Negative is
Okay.
self-produced. Outside of that, you need an outside person because I worked at a studio. I seen it firsthand where it's like, oh yeah, that would be cool. Like you can't just
Mhm.
it's the quality control.
If you can't separate yourself from the product, then it's hard to be objective about
Right.
what really is supposed to be in the song.
And
And
plus
having
even
the
even in
producer is there for that.
and even the way it's mixed and recorded, like Rick was telling me, is like the second chorus, the bass is a little bit louder. Like he's had me sitting in the studio and he'll play like some music and he'll be like, how does this make you feel? I'll be like, I don't know, I feel anxious and gross. And then he'll like turn some mids and I'm like, no, I don't even hear the difference.
Right.
And it makes you feel different. Like they have sound down to such a science that these producers understand, and good engineers, and very few musicians are just, and that's not fault of their own. But I'll tell you a funny story. When we're putting the studio together, I was sitting behind the board in like the corner of the room, and we were sitting there one night just listening to music, and I had like two drinks, and all of a sudden my head started pounding. I know I don't really ever get headaches, but this was like it hurt so bad I went home. I'm like, I'm getting sick. I get home, it hurt so bad I threw up. Okay. And I'm like, the next day it was like mostly gone. I was like, what the so a couple days later, he had this guy, his name was Footy. He was the guy who launched John Legend. He worked for Columbia. And he was sitting in the same seat. And Rick said, I knew something was messed up because I looked back at him and he's sitting in the seat like this. And so he said, when he left, I sat back there, and the room was so well insulated that the bass was just bouncing in the corner and just crushing your brain without even knowing it. So we had to put bass traps right there. Like I was like, dude, I threw up. I was literally thinking I might have to go to the hospital. The bass killed me. I'm a bass player. That should not happen. I should be immune.
It's
But anyway,
awesome.
yeah.
I mean, it
Oh well.
sucks, but it's hilarious just to
Yeah.
think that, you know, we get we get such an emotional high, an emotional connection with the music that there's it's the good and the bad. Like you have the
Yeah.
ability to, you know, to heal and to harm with music. You know, it's just a
Right.
matter just a matter of
Like,
degrees.
I almost had a brain aneurysm. But oh well. This was fun, dude.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it immensely. Look, um, tell us where we can find you, either on the socials. You know, definitely want to give me the YouTube channel for Victor. Like, tell us
Uh,
where we can get a hold of
um, I mean, heck, I could. I mean, I can give you my cell phone. If anybody needs insurance, call me. If you're in,
you.
I mean, what do you? I mean, just
Well, okay,
friend
let's
me on
ask this. Let me
Facebook.
ask it this way. Um, do you put any music out on any of the social medias?
I no, just Victor. I
Just
do.
Victor's. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Because I want to see that. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. So if that's
yeah,
something that you would like everybody else to kind of check out,
yeah.
definitely send us the link and
I'll
we'll put it
send you
out.
the link. Yeah, he's got a bunch of videos. Some of them are good, some of them are not. But there
Okay.
is some gems in there of him going nuts on that drum set, especially. But yeah, I'll tomorrow I'll send over the link. He'll be pumped because he just asked the Easter Bunny to subscribe to his channel.
I think with this group we can get a few more than just the Easter Bunny. So
Right.
yes, send that over. That'll be I think that'd be really cool to kind of see his channel blow up, you know, even if it's just
Yeah.
a couple of hundred
Right.
guys out of this group.
Yeah.
Like I said, we'll be able to take this and post it in a couple of other different places and maybe get some traction there.
Yeah.
But Chris, thank you so much for doing this, man. This has been a great conversation. And I can't thank you enough for wanting to be a part of it.
No sweat, brother. Anytime.
All right, man. You have a great night.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.